You think it's too early to be thinking about Christmas decorations? This is really the perfect time before we all get busy with the holiday rush. I'll show you some glass tricks today that will brighten your holiday season. But all of our time is really limited whenever we're planning for a holiday decoration. We need to be able to create something that's fast and fun, maybe even something that the children can help us do that will last year after year, maybe even something that we can do several variations on. So the project that I picked out for us today is real simple, real fast, and very versatile. So I selected a project today that will allow us to make a whole variety of Christmas decorations by using only 2 pattern pieces. A little holly leaf, a small one and a large one, will allow us to make this whole array of holiday decorations. It's going to be lots of fun and real easy for us to do. So let's get started. We're going to be working with little glass globs today, 2 sizes, the medium size and the small size. These we'll use as our holly berries, and we won't even have to cut red glass. But if you don't have access to the little globs, you could certainly cut your own little circles out of a whole variety of red cathedral glass. We're also going to be using some green glass for our holly leaves. These we're going to be cutting each piece out. I've selected several different shades of spectrum green. This is a piece of their green wispy. You'll see that it has white trailing through the green. This gives us really good surface color so that some of our holly leaves, the ones that can't catch the light, will have their own interest by having good surface color. This is a nice piece of glass because it has a texture to the back of it. Now the green cathedral would be very dark if it were just flat, but because it has the texture, it lets us get a little bit more sparkle and it's a little more interesting than just plain green cathedral. This is a beautiful piece of red glass that has a granite back to it. This would be real nice to use for a candle cube or for the centers of your holly leaves if you're cutting, or the center of your holly berries if you're cutting them yourself. And we're also going to be using some green water glass today. That will help accent our piece as well. Now if you have a particular decor in your house that does not work well with red and green, like maybe the new teals and the pinks, please feel free to convert this pattern into more of a teal green leaves and maybe a pink or lavender berry. It'll be very pretty. Or how about some of the new white iridized glass for a real contemporary look? But all the process is exactly the same regardless of the color of glass you're using. Okay, let's get our pattern piece ready to cut out. Now I'm just going to take regular household scissors and cut out my design. This design will last me a long time, but if you really want it to last for season after season, you could trace these onto Mylar. That makes our paper patterns into like a plastic pattern, and those are not, they don't wear out as easy as these do, but this will work just great for us today. I'm going to cut out the large petal first, and I'm going to take some rubber cement, coat the back of my pattern piece with it, wipe off a little of that extra that I got on there. I'm going to take one of the pieces of green glass now, put my safety glasses on, and I'm going to stick this down right on the edge. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch from this edge to this edge of the glass and from the tip down. If we'll give ourselves that extra 1/4 inch, we'll always have better luck in cutting out our glass piece. Remember, it's better to waste 1/4 than to waste this much by making a bad cut. We're going to start off by separating this away from the larger piece of glass, just like that, breaking it, and set this back out of our way. Now I'm going to come along and separate this piece down. We're going to score right up next to the edge of our paper, right around. Now since all these holly leaves can kind of have their own personality, it really doesn't hurt anything if you get off the pattern a little bit. And we're just going to continue right on around. Usually you see me score once and break once. We don't have to do that on this piece. We can just score out the whole thing and then go back and break it out. You can use your hands. If you need more support for that, you can use your breaking pliers. Line those breaking pliers right up with your score line and just gently break away. Move up to the next section. See how I moved my hand right up there to support that piece? And I'm going to break it away. Come up here and break that off. Just turn it around just like we scored it. We're going to break it along the same directions and the same system. That one we got lucky and got both of them off with one break. Okay, there we go. Now we have our little piece all cut out for us. We can peel off our pattern, set that to the side, and we're ready to cut our next piece. Let's do one more together. This is a fun, easy pattern to do. You could even get the kids to help you do this. And you don't even need to know where you're going to end up with this when you start out. Just cut a whole handful of the large pieces and a handful of the small ones, and then I'll show you all the things that we can make together with this. Score right on around. Reposition that glass so it's comfortable for you to make that whole score. There we go. Breaking it out as we go. Need those breakers, use them. Okay, here we go. Now we already have 2 holly leaves cut out. Let's go ahead and cut out 5 large ones and 1 small one for our first project. Now once you have a stack of holly leaves cut, you may find that you have like little flanges along the edges, places that didn't break as smoothly as you'd like for them to do. What you want to do with that is put on your safety glasses and use your grozers. Now grozers are just little pliers that have little teeth inside of them that let us just sort of nibble away at that so that we can chip off all those little pieces and take off all those little sharp edges so that when we're pushing with our fingers to put the lead cane around, we won't cut our hands. If you have a glass grinder, that can certainly do a quick, fast job on these edges for you. We're going to brush those chips off our work area. It's nice to keep a little bench brush handy so that you can clean up your work area. And now we're ready to start putting our lead cane on. Now, we've worked with lead cane before, and we know that it comes in a whole array of sizes. The size that we're going to be using today is very tiny. It's only 1/8 of an inch, and it's U-shaped as opposed to H, which we've been using in the middle of stained glass panels. This is designed to be used on the outside for sun catchers like we're making today. The glass fits right inside of this channel, just like this, and all we have to do is wrap it around the edges. We're going to start by cutting a little angle at the end of our lead cane, just like that, so that we have that kind of a 45-degree angle at it. Okay? Now then, let's take one of our large pieces, and let's start, it doesn't matter what end you start at, and we're going to fit that right up onto the glass with that 45-degree angle right at the end. And we're going to bend it around and push it up into that area. Now we're just doing this real gentle. Once we get it wrapped, I'll show you what we're going to be doing with it to get it to fit really nice. Now after we get that far, we're just going to come over here and push it into the end of our table, just like that. Push it down so that it fits nice and snug. See how we have that denting right in for us? Now we're going to bend around, shape it around the end, and once we come around this end, we're going to take a pair of needle nose pliers and just bend that together. See how that brings that in so it looks just like a little holly end? Come to the next area, bend it out, keep bending it around until we come all the way around our piece of glass. Then we'll be ready to solder it together. Okay, now let's set this aside and let's try one more. You need about a 6-inch piece of cane to do this. Let's start again by clipping our corners. Start with it at the end. And now one of the things you can do is mold it a little bit with your hand to start with. That'll get you going really well. Hold it firmly. Now if I rock out and rock back, see how I can mold that in just a little bit easier? Holding on to it. We're going to rock out and rock in again, working it right up. Molding it right around. Bend on around the corner. Okay, now let's remember to come in with our needle nose, bend that nice and tight right there, push that down, come on around it, just continue wrapping just like this, and when they come together and they overlap like this one does, we're going to trim that off by drawing a little mark with our thumbnail just like that tells us where we want to trim it. We're going to take our nippers and we're going to cut it flat first just like that, and then cut these at an angle. so that we get a nice mitered 45 cut. Can you see that? Just like that, so it'll come right together. Then we can take these and just pinch it shut, just like that. Now all you need to do is just go ahead and wrap all your big pieces and all your little pieces, and then I'll show you how to solder them together. We also need to wrap our little berries before we start to solder. We're going to take the same kind of cane we worked with before, but this time we're just going to hold on to that glob in the middle and just bend it around, just like that. That's real easy to do. Now on this side, we are going to cut this lead at an open angle, going in that direction. Just mark it with your fingernail and pull it back. Now we're going to cut flat first, and then we're going to turn it at an angle. Always cut flat and then the angle, and you'll get a much better job. This one we're going to roll around to where it meets that little spot. Now we're going to cut this in an angle that will match up with that. So the angle is going to be going in this direction this time. Bend it back out. Take your nippers and cut flat first. Once you have both those angles cut, we just have to bend this around and they'll match up. You can take your little needle nose pliers and then just tap on it just like that and hammer it right down so that you have a perfect little fit that when we get ready to solder that, it'll be perfectly round and it'll look really nice in our project. Why don't you wrap up about 4 or 5 of those globs so that we can put them with our holly leaves when we get ready to solder. This is a piece of Homa soap board that I'm working on today, and I'm going to take little metal push pins and I'm going to put them in place so that this will hold still while I'm trying to solder on it. Don't try to hold it with your fingers because it gets real hot and you'll burn yourself. Now I'm going to put some flux. This is the same kind of flux that I always use. It's a water soluble, so it'll clean up real easy. And I'm using a little paintbrush to apply it so I can control how much of it I put on. I'm going to use 50-50 solder because we're working with lead cane. And I have a 1/4 inch tip in my younger iron today. Now I've set my rheostat at about a 5 because I don't want it to burn through the lead when I start to solder. We always have to work on a lower temperature when we're working on lead than we do on brass or zinc. We're going to take just a little bit of solder on the end of our iron and just touch it to the cane, just like that. That's all it takes to hold it together. Now let's put our little globs together as well. We're going to slide them up, and because we hammered the lead down around them earlier, we won't even have to use push pins to hold them together. We can just flux just like that. Take our iron and proceed right along just like we did for the holly leaf. Try to keep these solder joints on the berries nice and low and round so they follow the same kind of look as the lead does so that we stay smooth and symmetrical. The little project that we're going to put together now is this little basket accessory. We're just going to put together a random assortment of leaves so that we can tie it onto the basket. Once the holiday season is over, we can just take this off and store it. You need to take 5 large leaves and 1 small leaf to do this particular project. And let's start by laying out on the table 3 of the large leaves and 1 of the small ones. Now kind of arrange these in about a half of a circle with the tips pointing toward each other. And we're going to come in and flux this whole area. Now this is Cascade lead that I'm using today, and it'll polish up and give me a really nice shine. So I don't need to worry about the solder. It'll blend with it really nicely when we clean it up. And we're just going to come along and solder that together, just like that. Okay. Now then, let's put our little berries in. Now this may take a little bit of experimenting. You may have to take some little ones and put in a large one. Kind of move them around until you get the look that you like, because they're all different sizes because they're just little casted pieces of glass. We're going to just put a little flux right there and right up there. Anywhere that it touches another piece of lead, we're going to solder it. Come in and just touch it, just like that. Try to be neat with this. Don't put on too much solder. You need to reflux once in a while. If you need to, please use those push pins to hold all these little pieces together, because they could move on you. Okay, just like that. All right, now we're ready to put on our other leaves, and these are dimensional leaves. These are leaves that are going to come right out of the holly section, so it gives a little more interest to our project. We're going to hold this at an angle. Now you can determine what kind of an angle you'd like, how far you want them to stick out. Let's take a little bit of that solder and just tack the edge of that right to that berry, just like that. See how that just holds it for us where we want it? We're going to reinforce this though, because this is a large piece of glass and lead.
Peter, so I know they're
Come right into the side, add a little bit of solder to it, drop right down just like that. Okay, now let's put on one more leaf, and this time let's select one of our good cathedral leaves, something that will really sparkle when the light comes up from behind it, and we're going to put it in at an angle just like that. We're going to come in and get a little bit of that solder, tack it together. One of the reasons I love this Unger iron is that it's really small and it gets right into these little areas. A large soldering iron could be kind of big and bulky to work with these small projects with. Now I think I'm going to add another berry, and this time kind of stack it up higher so I get a little bit of an angle to it. Bring it right in. More solder because it is real heavy, just like that. Okay, now let's try a little bit of decorative soldering so that we can connect all of these pieces together so that it'll flow much nicer. To do that decorative soldering, we need to put a lot of flux around this area, and we're just going to take drops of hot solder and just let them start falling around on top of it. Putting them in little droplets, some up on the higher level and some down. Take us a while to build these up, but just continue to work in the same little dropping method. Some up here. If it starts to kind of peak up on you, you want to add a little more flux to the area. Fill in those holes by just adding a little bit in each one of the areas. Just continue to add dots after dots until you have it just like our sample piece here. All you need to do to make your little decoration to attach to your basket is to solder a piece of copper wire to the back, and then you can just twist it around the handle whenever you want to use it. Now that we've learned how to work with lead and glass and create little holly decorations, let me show you some of the different things that I did with them so that you might try these using exactly the same two pattern pieces that we worked with. This is one of my favorites because I love to give dinner parties at my house. This is a little place card holder. It just uses 2 of the small leaves, 3 of the little berries in the front, and then if we turn it around, you'll see that in the back I have 3 medium-sized globs that I soldered together, and then I used 2 little scrap pieces of lead cane to space the globs from the leaves so that it would have something that would let it stand up and hold the place card. This is a Christmas tree ornament, or I could use this to tie onto a package. These are great for those unexpected guests that stop by the holiday that you would like to give them something. This is just 3 little small leaves, little globs, and on the back I used some copper wire, wrapped it around a little wooden stick to make a ring, and soldered it right to the back. This is one of my favorites. Having grown up in Texas, Christmas just would not be the same without mistletoe. So we used a brass rod to use as a hanger, soldered lots of different leaves together in both sizes of large and small. We used all 3 of the spectrum green glass shades, put the berries onto it, and hung some mistletoe from the bottom of it. This is really great for the holidays. This is a great idea. This is going to be used on a candle cube to accent it for the holidays. We use that same decorative soldering to enhance this little project. And I created a little candle cube out of red granite back spectrum glass. We've got some Cascade zinc around the outside. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put this right on front of the candle cube, just like this. And I'm going to tack solder it in place. Watch how easy this is to do. Just a little bit of flux. Find my solder, my iron. Just take a little bit of that. Watch how we just come in and put that just like that. We're going to come over here to this side and tack that just like that. See how easy that was? We turned a plain candle cube into a beautiful Christmas decoration, just like that. Every holiday, whatever the season, can always be made brighter with the glow of stained glass. I hope that you enjoyed learning how to decorate for just one of those holidays, and that I've made stained glass fun and easy for you.